All right, and good evening to everybody here. This is the South Florida Blitz. As you might notice, I am flying solo tonight for both shows. Marty Pallman is under the weather, and hopefully we hope he gets better here pretty quickly, so he'll be back next week with us here for the shows in full. And with that said, good evening here on the South Florida Blitz. Joshua Wilson here, coming to you here. Make sure you follow us on social media and including our YouTube channel at Florida HS Football, except for X. That is at FLA HS Football on X or /Twitter, as you all might know it. But good evening to everybody, and we got a lot going on here. Going to recap week 1 of South Florida, a lot that has happened in South Florida. And then coming up, we have Andre C. Fernandez from the Miami Herald, the deputy sports editor of the Miami Herald, will be joining us around between 7:40, 7:45 to talk about some South Florida football and what's going on down there. And we definitely appreciate Andre joining us tonight and with everything said. So, and with all that said, last week, I already know I can admit it here on When You See It Later for the Pick 6. Yeah, I was that bad. Even Marty was, yeah. I mean, when you see the record for last week, how we on our picks, I mean, yes, we will have Marty's full picks for the Pick 6 for both shows tonight here. So we will have those and everything. But with all that said, it really just, I was not happy with myself about the Pick 6 last week. But I will say this, it definitely will make some things interesting to talk about here coming up here in just a moment. And with that said, yes, indeed. We're getting ready here into the Blitz lines here. And honestly, the Florida team struggled in the Broward County National High School Football Showcase, and it couldn't be said any better, louder than that right there is that, I mean, if you saw it, you watched on ESPN, you watched the 3 games between American Heritage Plantation, St. Thomas Aquinas, and Chaminade Madonna, and all 3 teams lost. And that right there just made it really a struggle right there. I mean, I was watching that American Heritage game Friday night, and honestly, American Heritage could have won that game had they not been kicking field goals. I mean, that is the biggest difference maker right there. When you can put great drives together, but when you get down into the red zone and you can't even score 6 points, and you're said kicking field goals and kicking a field goal after field goal, it eventually catches up to you, and then caught up to the Patriots in that game Friday night against Milton out of Georgia. And looking at the other couple of games here, just really looking at it, Chaminade Madonna, St. John Bosco, close battle. But, at the end of the day, Chaminade Madonna, they have been really an impressive team over the last couple of years. And honestly, for the Lions, to sit there and go 0-1 to start the season when you're defending your state championship, your state title here, trying to see if I might lost my camera here. We're trying to see. Oh, there we go. The camera just froze up a little bit, but I'm not sure. It may have been okay on y'all's side. But it froze up on my side for a moment there. But anyways, Chaminade Madonna losing. That's not the way you want to start the season. St. Thomas Aquinas, you're losing your own home field on national TV. I mean, for any team like that to lose like that on national TV on your own home field, I know the feeling can be definitely a little tough. And honestly, at the end of the day, looking at it, even Davie Western, they lost to Hoover, Alabama. I mean, honestly, you had 2 matchups involving Florida versus Florida. Obviously, Lake Mary versus Cardinal Gibbons, and not in Miami Northwestern versus Coconut Creek. And that's where I get to the next here in the rundown here in the Blitz lines. Miami Northwestern looking mighty strong. I mean, shutting out Coconut Creek there in the Broward County Showcase. I couldn't say that. That was an impressive performance there for Teddy Bridgewater's group. Honestly, Teddy Bridgewater, which we'll talk about with Andre Fernandez here coming up here in a little bit, Teddy Bridgewater, a lot of people remember, I mean, he was just like yesterday, he was playing high school football there at Miami Northwestern. Now, playing quarterback in the NFL. Now here it is. Now he's 1-0 as a high school football coach. And they got a big game coming up this week at Venice. And honestly, I said this. I took the Bulls in my picks last night in the Pick 6 on the Gulf Coast Blitz. It's obviously, since the game's going to be at Venice, And honestly, the Bulls are just, I mean, if you can go in there, you dominate your preseason game, you go in and dominate Coconut Creek in what is by far the best opening season showcase of any high school football games anywhere on the country. If anyone wants to go argue with Dr. Kevin Perry, please do, because Dr. Kevin Perry and what he has done in 3 years has done an impressive job building that showcase up. For Miami Northwestern to go in there and pitch a shutout and put up over 40 points like that, hey, that is huge. That is very huge for the Bulls. So, that said, on to the next Miami team that really, honestly, Miami Central had a little bit of a struggle there in the home loss there with Lakeland. Honestly, that is a place that, hey, the Rockets, they defend Traspal. They really defend Traspal usually most nights when there's somebody, especially coming of a team that's coming from out of the region. And here you go. The Rockets falter at home with Lakeland. We talked about it big last night. Hey, I was wrong about Lakeland and all that. But, hey, Miami Central, for the Rockets, I think this is a game that they can really learn from. Honestly, to me, they will learn a lot from that game. And at the end of the day, I think Miami Central will bounce back from this. And hey, they got Miami Edison this week. It's going to be on the pick six. I will tell you that right now. It'll be on the pick six. But honestly, I feel like for Miami Central, this is a game that they'll learn from, and they will bounce back. But usually 9 times out of 10, Miami-Dade County teams are defending Traspal without issue. So, with that said, how about we go up to Palm Beach County up I-95, the West Boca Raton, who upends Benjamin in a close game, 14-13. Honestly, West Boca, it has been building. I mean, Coach Dylan Potts there at West Boca Raton, he has got that program really rolling. And especially after that upset in the first round last year against Delray Beach Atlantic, the Bulls, they are a team that you do not want to mess with. I honestly say that. You do not want to mess with that team. And they got a big matchup with Palm Beach Central this weekend. Honestly, that is going to be huge right there in terms of Palm Beach Central being, that's a matchup. That is a huge matchup for the Bulls and against the Broncos. And if the Bulls win this one, it will definitely keep the West Boca Raton in the conversation. And Asher Kelp is message said in the comments already. And yes, Asher, West Boca is a team to watch. That's why we're talking about them, because hey, you beat that team in Benjamin, a team that has been pretty decent in Palm Beach County, for many years. That's huge. Especially when West Boca has been something, for a long time has been other teams' doormat. So here you go. All right. And yes, Asher, yes, definitely keep an eye on Atlantic. And that's what we're going to talk about here as well here in just a moment. So, all right. What's up with Vero Beach? Lost to O'Galley. I mean, honestly, because, Vero Beach, the Treasure Coast area is part of this for our show here for the South Florida Blitz. Vero Beach, I mean, I know it's a close loss, 29-27. I get it. But honestly, to me, this is a game that Vero Beach should have easily won. I will be honest with you. The Indians should have won that game. It's after especially the fact that O'Galley struggled against Mainland, and we already know what happened with Mainland the other night. So but for week one. So, but we'll see what happens there this week. But Vero Beach, they got a tough team coming into town this week in Gainesville Buchholz. I mean, Buchholz is a really good team, and Vero Beach has to be ready for this. I mean, honestly, you got quarterback Trace Johnson. You got some weapons on offense. That's where I'm concerned that can Vero Beach be able to defend that? I don't know. And honestly, and we'll have some questions later here about that, in terms of the questions we're going to look at, because it's going to be, that is another game that's going to be coming up here along on our pick six is Buchholz versus Vero Beach, and that'll be a big one right there. All right, Atlantic and Palm Beach Central among the top teams in Palm Beach County. Yes, they're still among the top teams. West Boca Raton, you throw that into the question mark there. We definitely say this about these teams here along the way. Palm Beach County, I think sometimes Palm Beach County gets forgotten about, but needless to say is that among outside of West Boca Raton, Atlantic, Palm Beach Central. I mean, there's still got the likes of Pahokee sitting there as well, and Pahokee. I mean, trying to think who else. Sorry, Jupiter is another team that I would still say keep an eye on. They were definitely a playoff team last year, but again, these teams. I'll tell you this: it's a little hard flying solo tonight, but I'm doing the best I can here tonight because usually I like to have conversational pieces when with my co-host Marty Pallman, and again, hopefully our best wishes to Marty, and hoping getting better as quickly as possible. Yeah, I got it out. All right, looking at a couple other things, I got a question here, and this is where I'm gonna throw this question in terms of what I see here. I've already see a comment in the question. A comment with a question that I'm going to put as towards the fan question of the week because it is a really good question, and I will answer that question coming up here in the next little bit. But first, we are going to take a 2-minute water break. We're going to take that, and then we're going to have Andre C. Fernandez, the deputy sports editor from the Miami Herald, joining us here on the South Florida Blitz. We'll be right back right after this, right here on 4hsfootball.com and all of our social media platforms where we're streaming at tonight. All right, welcome back here to the South Florida Blitz here on FortHSFootball.com. Definitely appreciate everybody watching and tuning in tonight on the FortHSFootball.com social medias at FortHSFootball, except for X, that is FLIHS Football. And joining us now is the deputy sports editor at the Miami Herald. That is Andre C. Fernandez. Andre, appreciate you joining me here on last minute notice but for the South Florida Blitz. But I know week one was already action packed, and I mean, it just, if we what we saw last week was any indicator, this season's going to be fun to watch for South Florida teams. And let me get started first with this. I mean, are you stunned that South Florida struggled in the Broward County National High School Football Showcase? I mean, because that was like a stunner outside of the two Florida versus Florida matchups. It was, every team went down that was a Florida team in those games.
Yeah, I mean, there were some stunners, and some that you kind of figure could have happened considering the competition in some cases. Like, Chaminade and St. Thomas were both facing two of the best teams in the country, and Bishop Gorman's a monster. I mean, I think the fact that Aquinas hung with them and was down to the wire with them was impressive, because I think a lot of people thought Gorman could come in there and win that game easily. And Aquinas showed that they're a little better. A lot of the buzz around the state is Aquinas down this year. They kind of showed they aren't. And I think a big reason was their quarterback, Andrew Indorf, who's come a long way. He's gotten a lot better. That's the best game I've seen him play in his high school career. And Chaminade, again, mixing in. There's still, if you want to compare talent, not that much of a drop-off. I mean, you lose a player like Jeremiah Smith, who you're going to see in the NFL pretty soon in a few years. But it's just new faces that are getting acclimated right now for Chaminade. And they went down to the wire, too. There were not 9 seconds left when they missed that pass that could have tied the game or maybe won the game if they had hit the 2. But it were some disappointments. I mean, one of them had to be Western, losing to Hoover. They kind of blew that game at the end. Heritage, again, Milton's very good. Luke Nichols, very good. They had a shot at it. You kind of knew Gibbons was going to struggle. Lake Mary with such a great quarterback as Noah Grubbs is. So it was kind of a mixed bag. One that wasn't in that showcase that was very surprising was the way that Central looked against Lakeland. And not to take anything away from Lakeland. Lakeland's very good. A great team is going to have a shot at winning another state championship. But it was kind of the flat performance that Central had, especially on offense, that just they could not run the football. Their quarterback, Beckham Kritza, he hit one long pass to Nashawn Montgomery. But other than that, didn't do much. And they couldn't really they got down there, 3rd and goal, and 4th and goal on the 1, stuffed twice at the goal line. I mean, that did not look like the Central Rockets of these past few years, even last year when they didn't win the state title. And it makes you wonder. Now, on the upswing, Miami Northwestern, I'm just telling you, if anybody doesn't know already, that team is coming back. I mean, I don't know if they're all the way back yet, but they looked really good.
And that's where I want to kind of lean into in the moment here. But, American Heritage, I felt like American Heritage, they could have won that game had they not been kicking field goals. I think that's the biggest difference. If they can get downfield and score 6 every time on every drive, they win that game against Milton. And I think that's the huge thing, the biggest takeaway I took from that game.
Right. And that's the other thing, too. I mean, Dia Bell's had an incredible offseason. I mean, he's skyrocketed from where he was a year ago at this point. But there's still the question of now it's got to translate onto the field. It's not just the upside and the potential. Can he win big ball games? In this one, he had his moments. He played fairly well at times. But, it's going to have to step up a notch when teams like Chaminade come in and St. Thomas and Central and some of the squads they're going to face, because their schedule is brutal, to say the least.
I mean, they're gonna have Western this week, so there you go. Right. That explains it right there. The brutal, but Miami Northwestern, Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, preseason and now week 1, you come in and you just totally just flatten Coconut Creek right out the door. I mean, what is that? I mean, for Teddy to come and being an NFL quarterback last year to being a high school head football coach and taking this team, his alma mater, now all of a sudden putting them back on the spotlight map. I mean, that is huge. I mean, what is so impressive what we have seen here in the first, preseason in week 1 here out of Bridgewater's coaching staff.
Right. They smashed Creek, like you said. They also smashed the good Palmetto team, which came back and beat Homestead in their opener. So that, I'm telling you, this is, when I got there, I just looked around and I saw the talent on the field. And I think I told Larry and I told everybody else, Larry Bluestein and everybody else that was there, they look like Northwestern again, like size-wise. And then when they turned on the speed in the game, it's just they're balanced. I mean, I don't know if they can do one thing great, but they can do everything good. And they hadn't been that way for a long time. They probably since the Max years, since they won the state title a few years ago. They can run the ball. They can throw the ball. Leon Strouder's a solid quarterback. They put Calvin Russell at receiver, strictly at receiver. He's not playing quarterback, at least not for now, unless they need him to. And he is an unbelievable wide receiver, as many people know. Kid's got hands, speed, size, everything. But he's not the only one. They have a group of receivers there. They can block, they can defend. Their special teams is good. They have a good kicker. I'm telling you, they have a little bit of everything, all the ingredients. I think now it's just them, and they weren't penalized too much, which was a staple, unfortunately, for them in years past. You go to those games and they commit 15 penalties, a lot of knucklehead miscues. They kept that to a minimum, and they have for the first 2 weeks. And I think that's a credit to Teddy. And you talk about his coaching staff. He surrounded himself with a very good coaching staff, a lot of alums that have come back and joined the crew there. I'm telling you, I'm not going to overreact to 2 games and say they can beat Central yet, but they're going to be a legitimate threat this year in that Class 3A, and they're there. They're knocking on Central's door.
Yeah, and and what's interesting is that it's not only that we could get see that, obviously the matchup during the regular season. We could potentially see that matchup happening in the postseason, considering that both of them are in two separate districts. They both, Miami Central and Northwestern, could be district champs this year, but eventually meet up for maybe potentially a regional final per se. And that's and I think honestly for me, that's exciting because it's like, hey, wait a second, now we're finally kind of getting some of these teams back in that haven't been on the map, and that's huge. And of course, obviously, combine that with the teams that have been up and coming, especially like a Homestead who has been a state runner-up the past 2 years, but all of a sudden, what happened Friday night? You were, Miami Palmetto was supposed to be, kind of a little bit down, but all of a sudden, wait a second, you let them come around and take that momentum away a little bit.
Yeah, Palmetto seems to have their number. This is 2 years in a row that they beat them in the season opener. But let's see what happens the rest of the way. I mean, Palmetto has to turn around now and face Booker T this week. Tough game. Homestead turns around and has their rivalry game against South Dade. I think Homestead will be fine. I think it could have also been one of those, acclamation type deals where, they're breaking in a new quarterback too. I mean, new to them. This kid Malachi, they call him Bubba Lewis, who came down from New Jersey. He's replacing a great one in Josh Townsend. So they're kind of fitting the pieces together. Cortez Mills is a little banged up in the preseason, so I don't know if he's at 100%. Once they get rolling, if their defense really steps up, I think they'll be okay. I mean, they pretty much handled a very good Cardinal Newman team in the exhibition game the week before. So last year, that game was a blip. They committed like 200 yards in penalties in that game. This one could be too. Now, if they struggle the next 2 weeks, then you might have something to worry about way down south there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a couple of other teams, I think, maybe were, I don't think as we know that a lot of the smaller schools get mentioned, but, last year it was Archbishop Carroll that was doing a lot of things down there. And, especially in terms of the smaller schools. And what are you seeing and kind of expecting, especially down in Miami-Dade, where a lot of these 1A teams are residing at?
I mean, 1A belongs to Chaminade. I think there's still
outside of that. We don't know that.
Yeah. I mean,
but we know that. But the other teams in Miami-Dade that think maybe hey, we're going to go 2-3 deep into the playoffs before we end up having meeting the ultimate fate.
Yeah, I mean, Carroll is always going to do what they do. I mean, they run that that single wing pile of dust, just get yards, misdirection, all of that. They're still doing that. And they had to replace some offensive linemen, so it's going to be a challenge. But their schedule is wicked, too. I mean, they play teams like Columbus this year. They're going to take on a big, slate to get back to where they were. I think True North is better than people think because they lost a lot of transfers, namely the guys that went to Chaminade. But they brought in some, too. And they looked it in the preseason game against Belen. Last week I think they beat True Prep, so they handled business. They're not going to get tested, at least at the beginning, but that's the type of team. And they were close. 2 years ago they were in the state semifinal. Last year Carroll knocked them out. They may get back to where they were this season and get back to that state semifinal and be the team to face Chaminade now. But the gap between everyone there and Chaminade is the Grand Canyon, even this year, even after losing all the guys that they did.
No, and you mentioned Columbus, which is a team we haven't talked about yet here. And I mean, they squeaked by Southridge. I mean, 17-14. I mean, is there any concerns that the Explorers may be taking a step back compared to the last couple of years? Defending state champs here. Is there a concern, or is that, or is 7A still a chance that Columbus runs the table here again and wins a third straight state championship?
I always give Columbus the nod when it comes to coaching, preparedness, all of that. By the end of the season, this team will be a lot better. But yeah, I think there is slight concern, and I noticed it in Coach Dunn's voice, Coach Dave Dunn's voice in the preseason when we were at Media Day. I think he's got the quarterback remains the question. Jason Barquette played most of the game the other day. They've got to settle in there. They've got to figure out. They've got to gel when it comes to that side of the field, the passing game, all of that, because they had moments. But they lost a good one. They lost a very good one in Mendoza the last 2 years that took them to 2 state championships. Whenever Columbus has won the state title in these last few years, it's because they've had a great quarterback leading the way. When they don't, they're good, but not that good. So that's going to be the key. I think down here, Western on paper is the one everybody's talking about. But until proven otherwise, Columbus is the team to beat as far as South Florida goes in 7A. But after that, it's going to be tough because Lake Mary's waiting, Potentially Seminole is waiting. They've got some good ones in 7A upstate that
and Venice.
And
Venice might be waiting.
Which Venice is waiting for Northwestern this week. That's going to be one of the best games of the week this week for sure.
No, absolutely. And I said, there's a, I mean, of course we said, I said this last night on the Gulf Coast Blitz show I had. I mean, I was like, I know Venice is a tough environment to play for a lot of teams, because it's Powell Davis Stadium, but I feel like the way Miami Northwestern, I think Miami Northwestern sent a message to everybody. Hey, you can't, we're not down right this second. We're coming back, and don't take us for granted, because, hey, you take us for granted. We may come in there and we may beat you, and we may beat you pretty soundly. And that's where I'm thinking, hey, maybe this is a chance at Miami Northwestern. You come in there and get a big win at Venice. I think that would really set the tone for a lot of people.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of last year at the beginning of the season when Norland went up to Lakeland and played that great game. It was a shootout, and you pour through like 6 touchdown passes. Like, that's the type of game it'll have to be for Northwestern to win. And in a tough environment, it's a great test. Even if they don't win, it's a great test for where this program is right now in terms of reloading. And like you said, trying to prove to everyone that they're back. But just from an experience standpoint, for a lot of these guys, the younger ones, they have a lot of sophomores and juniors on this team. I mean, this is not just Teddy's building something there that's going to last a bit if they keep it all together. This could be a team that'll be good for at least the next 2-3 seasons.
No, absolutely. And Andre, as we start to wrap it up here, what are your thoughts with the transition back from away from that Metro Suburban the last 2 years back to the normal classifications that you grew up on, we grew up on? It's because a lot of people are like saying, oh well, this leads to South Florida winning all the state championships, but it's like, it's like, wait a second, hold on, not just so fast now. Considering that like we just said, we're seeing some concerns about Columbus. It may not be just South Florida winning it all this year.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have, like I said, Columbus could be. Western's got a shot, in 6A, Homestead, Monarch. St. Thomas should win 5A if all goes well for them. And then obviously Chaminade down in 1A. But there's several others like Heritage, Norland, Central Northwestern in 2A. Coco's the favorite. You would think Booker T maybe or Cardinal Gibbons have a shot to at least get close and push them a little bit. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the format, I mean, like you said, it's the one we're used to. I mean, I like it. Coaches down here like it because they get a better shot. I mean, I'm sure they're all happy to escape the gauntlet that 2M was for the last 2 years. Basically it was like survival of the fittest with all those great teams packed into one classification. There were great championship games. We'll see if that could be the unfortunate side effect if some of the games are a little lopsided because it's a little more spread out now. But I'm curious to see how it's going to work out in a couple of years when they try this open division thing. I mean, maybe that'll kind of even things out a bit.
No, absolutely. And what do you think the chances are of South Florida hosting the 1A through 7A state championships? You think like that's pretty high this year?
Rumor has it. I think that's very good. That's a very good shot. Let's just put it that way. Very good shot, and if that's the case, that's that if that happens, that's where we'll be seeing state championship games down in South Florida again after a 1 year hiatus, and we'll see what happens there. But Andre, appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule, and you can follow Andre on X or /Twitter as everybody calls it, Fernandez Andre C, and follow what he does. Does great work there at the Miami Herald. That's been doing it for a long time, and Andre, appreciate it, man. Thanks, Josh. Glad I could be your wingman at least for a few minutes. Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Andre. Take care, man. Take care, buddy. All right, you too. All right, that was Andre Fernandez from the Miami Herald joining us here on the South Florida Blitz. And coming up here, we got the next water break, and then we have the fan question of the week, which actually we got a couple of questions. I do have one big question sitting in the box already sitting here. So we're going to take that question, we're going to answer it, and then we're going to go from there and have the pick six for week 2. We'll be right back right after this here on the South Florida Blitz here on 4HSFootball.com and the 4HSFootball.com social media platforms. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back here on the South Florida Blitz here. And yes, we are at the point of the show for the fan question of the week. And actually, we do have a good question that is sitting here in the comments here. And that is from Mike Tactic. And he says, do you think there are too many divisions in Florida high school football? I'm in favor of 4 divisions, a World Division and an Open Division for the prep academies. And honestly, I mean, when it comes to everything about the classifications, honestly, I would have been all right with having 6 for like instead of having 1A through 6A plus having the World Division, and I would have been okay with that. But I mean, the FHA decided to go to 8 classifications that we in 1A through 7A to rural. But as you heard Andre Fernandez talk about there in the there on the interview, we got the Open Division coming, and yes, that is going to be phased in about 2 years here. So it was already approved last school year, but it's going to be phased in. So when the next classification cycle comes up here for the 2026 season, we will see that Open Division take effect. What you're going to see this year and next year is a test in the rural classification of an A and B division to see if that works and brings some parity there with 2 brackets. So the 16 highest rated teams will be an A division. The next 16 will be sitting there in that B division. So we'll see what happens to see how it looks, because honestly, if that works over in the rural division, you're going to see that kind of apply to the other classifications here. And with all that said, so right this second, I'm just kind of like, I'm okay if it was to shrink down just a little bit more, but I think you can't shrink it too much, Mike, because if you shrink it too much, in my opinion, honestly, what's going to happen is that you're going to end up having bigger enrollment gap disparities, and what's going to happen, the smaller schools are going to feel that impact even further than what they already have, and they're more likely to bolt for other places. So you got to kind of keep in mind that it's not so much about what's at the top, it's more about how those numbers are sitting at the bottom. That's where you got to look at and kind of keep that in mind. So, and Asher Kelp asked, oh, right, what team in Palm Beach County can make a run to the state championship this year? And well, I mean, there'd be years where we talk about it being Pahokee, but I don't know if Pahokee is in that same conversation right this second. But if there's a team that maybe Delray Beach Atlantic would be a good I don't know if West Boca Raton is in that category at this particular point. Palm Beach Central, they've been in the mix the last couple years, but I know they have kind of last year they struggled just a little bit there in that postseason run. But we'll see. Maybe Delray Beach Atlantic, I think, maybe be the best team that would be has the best chance, I would feel like, to make a run to the state championship this year. But we'll see what happens, because I believe Delray Beach Atlantic, they're Class 5A, and honestly, that is a crowded Class 5A in terms of the talented teams that are there. So, all right. I mean, before I cue the music for the pick 6, and I mean literally cue the music here, this is where I have to play the tone, and this is for the result from last week. Yes, please go ahead. Give me. I literally went 0 for 6. Yes, I literally went 0 for 6. Marty went 1-5. I mean, he took Miami Northwestern over Coconut Creek. He took the Bulls, and I got to give him props for that one. But I mean, we picked all the Florida teams, and especially with those games that we had in with the Broward National High School Football Showcase, and we just, man, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in myself, but hey, it's only 2 weeks into the season. I can recover from this. Marty can recover from this. Marty's 5-7 on the season for South Florida picks. I'm 4-8 right now, so we'll just leave it at that for right this second. All right. So we are going into the picks here with our first game. Miami Palmetto 1-0 at Booker T. Washington 1-0, but versus I think that game will be at Curtis Park, I want to say. So yes. With that said, Marty in his picks took Palmetto to win this one, and I get it. Palmetto beat Homestead, but man, Booker T. Washington, you got Ice Harris there, head coach. And you know what? I like Booker T, and Booker T is back in that mix of teams that are giving that basically create trouble down there in Miami-Dade County in terms of when it comes to the postseason field. And I'm going with the Tornadoes. I'm going against the grain here, and I'm going the Tornadoes for this week. All right. So with that said, how about this? We're going to go up I-95 up to the Citrus Bowl in Vero Beach. That is the name of the stadium there at Vero Beach High School, home of those Fighting Indians. And Buchholz making the long road trip from Gainesville this week to take on the Indians, who are 0-1 after losing 29-27 to O'Galley. Buchholz beat Vanguard to open the season pretty soundly. And with that said, Mark Whittemore's team is going to be in for a battle because it is a very loud and a very, very impactful environment there at Vero Beach. And with that said, Marty is going to take Vero Beach in the picks this week. But I feel like for this one, I just feel like Buchholz is going to go down on the road, and they are going to pick up a big win, which will definitely help them move to 2-0 on the season, which would be uncharacteristic from the other side for Vero Beach to be starting the season 0-2. And we know that for a lot of things that Vero Beach is just that team that usually does not start a season 0-2. And I would have to do some digging into the record books to find out when the last time, if Vero Beach just go 1-2, when was the last time they went 0-2? Because that will definitely be leaving a lot of questions and a lot of questions in people's heads, especially along there on the Treasure Coast and across the state. So, all right, moving along to our game number 3 of the picks here. We've got Western 0-1 versus American Heritage 0-1. As we did with Andre Fernandez, we're talking about it. It's American Heritage has got a gauntlet of a schedule. And honestly, Western, they let themselves down, losing to Hoover late in that game. And I say this, and when I talk to Marty about this game, we feel like that American Heritage is going to bounce back, and that's what we're going with in both of our picks. American Heritage Plantation, we're going with them for this one, and because the game is at Heritage, and honestly, that's a tough place to play. It's a very quaint type stadium. It's like the school is like right there. The stadium and the school are butted up against each other, and that environment right there alone. It's loud and it's tight, and it's just a great place to play some high school football at. But we're going with the Patriots to win this week. All right, rolling along here as we heard talk about South Dade versus Homestead. This is a rivalry game. Both teams coming into this game 0-1. Marty feels like Homestead's going to bounce back this week. Yep, and he said that he was going to think the Homestead was going to bounce back this week, and I feel like Homestead will bounce back this week. Even Andre Fernandez said he feels like Homestead will bounce back here and win this game most likely. And I'm going with Homestead Broncos for the win this week here. I'm hoping that we improve our record here compared to last week with the picks. I'm honest. It really was that it was disappointing. So. All right, Miami Edison versus Miami Central. Both teams, Miami Edison 1-0. Miami Central coming off that loss to Lakeland. Honestly, I think this is a game that, hey, the Rockets bounce back. All right, everybody going to tell me, what about Uncle Luke's team in Miami Edison? Yeah, okay. If Miami Edison wins this, especially if, as Andre talked about, that, the Rockets come out flat and struggled. Honestly, if the Rockets come out and struggle again here, there's probably going to be more questions raised in South Florida and across the entire state about what's going on with Miami Central. Why are they flat? What's going on? Not typical. So we just got to watch this, is what Andre said. If we watch how Miami Northwestern goes on the upward trajectory and Miami Central kind of goes down on maybe stays flat or goes down a little bit, there could be some changing of the guard there in Miami-Dade County once again. So that's a storyline to see and watch unfold here as the season progresses. With that said, Marty is going with Miami Central, and I am going with Miami Central for the pick. I believe Miami Central can win this game. I believe that they will recover from what happened against Lakeland, and I will keep it right there, simple as that. Yes, we will keep it as simple as that with the picks here. All right. Our final game here on the pick six for this week here in week number 2, West Boca Raton at Palm Beach Central. As we mentioned it here earlier, this is a game that both teams, these are two of the best teams in Palm Beach County right now as we speak. West Boca Raton getting that 14-13 win against Benjamin. Palm Beach Central picking up that win on the against Pahokee. Honestly, picking up a win for West Boca Raton, I feel like that is a much bigger win against Benjamin for a program that has not had a lot of attention over the years compared to Palm Beach Central. I think like that win over Benjamin for West Boca Raton was huge. That was probably one of the biggest wins they could put down in program history. Put it up in the same level as them beating Delray Beach Atlantic last year. So that's where I put that kind of in that kind of category. It's big games against big time opponents, and Benjamin, big time opponent. Here's Palm Beach Central, another big time opponent. So, with that said, Marty is going with Palm Beach Central. I feel like this is just my gut feeling. What head coach Dylan Potts is doing there at West Boca Raton is just incredible. And honestly, I am going with West Boca and the Bulls for the win here this week in week number 2. So yes, that is the pick 6 for week 2 here on the South Florida Blitz. And definitely kind of muted myself there for a second. Oops, all right, I didn't hear myself as in the headphones, I should say. Anyways, we got a couple of comments here coming up here as we have got some comments sitting here in the section. And Asher Kelp said Dade County is still deep with talent. Yes, indeed, they are still deep with talent. You definitely got that very much so. And Asher also said earlier, too many just stick with the classifications. And I mean, I everybody's got an opinion about how classifications and everything, how that should go and all that. So, and Mark Cannon, who's also been watching, definitely saw you and say, "Go, hey fellas, well, I mean, Marty's watching from home, hopefully with getting some rest, and hopefully we'll have him back next week, and much better, and not being under the weather." So, but as I said, Marty Pallman under the weather this week, but we had his picks this week, and he'll coordinate with the show in terms of the topics to talk about and everything, and definitely appreciate that as much as possible and all that. So anyways, with all of that said, we are going to wrap this thing up here. Definitely appreciate Andre Fernandez joining us from the Miami Herald here on the South Florida Blitz. We'll be back next week here on Tuesday nights from 7:30 till 8:15 right here on 4hsfootball.com and on the 4hsfootball.com social media apps. Follow us at 4hsfootball. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube at 4hsfootball. Hit that notification bell to get notifications when we go live or post new videos. Yes, indeed. And also scan that QR code and download the 4hsfootball.com app. We appreciate it. And as such, we'll see you next week on the South Florida Blitz. Now, coming up, the North Florida Blitz right here on 4hsfootball.com.